It creates a gentle breeze more for everyday use than for combat. A refreshing, cool wind. The murky mist is finally clearing up, Honda said in amazement, and the one who cast that spell was none other than our protagonist Jong-soon, who had just arrived back on the scene. Shit, I can't believe it spread this far. Why, boss, you're back. Bak Jong-pyo managed to say, struggling to lift his head while foaming at the mouth. Having no other choice, Jong-soon had to dig into his bag of tricks and pull out a healing skill to save his subordinate. A basic detoxification spell from the White Tower neutralizes the toxin. The poison has already spread through his body. While detoxification is Mars's specialty, it'll be faster if I help out. Thank you. Bak Jong-pyo sobbed, tears streaming down his face. Jong-soon, you're back, Jua said cheerfully. Yeah, thanks to Hanchiel's tracking, I got here sooner than I expected. It's just part of my training, Hanchiel replied nonchalantly. Turning back to Joa, she noticed the group of people with Jong-soon and asked, more importantly, Jong-soon, who are all these people? In response, the leader of the group stepped forward and bowed his head. My name is Young. We only survived thanks to Mr. Jong-soon. If it's all right with you, we'd like to follow him and join your group. Of course, we'd be happy to have you. As she spoke, the swordswoman smiled brightly and extended her hand. Her friendly gesture genuinely surprised Young. Really, you're actually accepting us, but you've only just met us. In response, Joa said confidently, of course, if Jong-soon brought you here, then you're welcome among us. Handan Hanaji, could you two get some clothes for our new friends? Would that be all right? Hearing this, the twins hurried over from behind. Yes, ma'am. Everyone, please follow us. We have some spare clothes. And just like that, they led the new group off to get changed. Meanwhile, Jua turned to Jong-soon and said, I'm honestly surprised. You actually brought people back with you, Jong-soon. If they've managed to survive this long, their willpower must be incredible. Jong-soon replied, that willpower is the most important thing. Jua nodded in agreement. Just then, they received a system notification. You have successfully passed the trial of the poisonous mist. All participants in the trial will receive 1,000 points. Time flew by, and the group led by Jong-soon began clearing one trial after another. You have passed the trial of the feeble legs. Success. You have successfully passed the trial of the acid swamp. You have successfully hunted the pack of red bears. All participants in the trial will receive 2,000 points. Before my regression, I had to risk my life just to pass each trial, but this time around, no one has to die. Because of that, I can also tackle the hidden dungeons when I get a chance. Thanks to the journey milestone, I already know where they're all located. Before I regressed, even if I found a dungeon, I wasn't strong enough to conquer it, but now I can easily clear dungeons of this level all by myself. With the power of gluttony, I'll target the entire insect camp. The fangs of gluttony are attacking the village. The starving prince constellation is enjoying the taste of the insect fluid. It says the explosive texture over here is amazing. Jong-soon felt a little creeped out watching it chew so ravenously with such a satisfied look on its face. Shaking that feeling off, Jong-soon quickly left the area after clearing the dungeon. At this rate, I'll reach the fourth circle faster than I expected, he thought to himself, before being snapped out of it by Bak Jong-pyo's voice. Boss, you're here. How did you find me? Jong-soon asked, curious. I was scouting and saw your tracks, so I followed them. Bak Jong-pyo replied, with a knack for scouting like that, Jong-soon had to admit it, even if he didn't want to. He was reluctant to admit it, but the guy really did have a talent for scouting. Back to Bak Jong-pyo, who was completely unaware of what Jong-soon was thinking. So he spoke up, asking, are you planning on staying here for a while? No, it's time to head back. I've found everything I need. Jong-soon said, shaking his head. At that exact moment, the ranking leaderboard appeared before them, and Jong-soon was still in first place with 250,080 points. Looking at that score, his buddy Bak Jong-pyo took the opportunity to butter him up. Whoa, you're amazing, boss. Every time I see your achievements, my jaw just hits the floor. Ignoring the flattery, Jong-soon was lost in thought. By diligently searching for hidden fragments, getting first place isn't actually that surprising. But there are some special players in this tower. A few of them are on a completely different level right from the start. They receive power from a constellation, a powerful one, right from the get-go. Finishing his thought, Jong-soon turned and said, let's go. Yes, boss, ride the white wolf with me. I've gotten way better at riding it. And just like that, they were off at an incredible speed. Time flew by once again, and the group had just passed the trial of the Screaming Forest. It's finally over. What in the world was that thing screaming the whole time I thought my eardrums were going to burst? The grumbling group turned to Yo, who, having finished the challenge, began to direct everyone. Great job, people. Let's rest up and regroup. Young-yu did great too. I know. It's because everyone looked out for each other. he replied. Meanwhile, Jong-soon was still leaning coolly against a tree, taking in the whole scene. Everyone looked much more cheerful, maybe because their skills and confidence had grown, or maybe they were just bored out of their minds. Yua and Honolulu went up to Jong-soon looking for a challenge. "I want to have a match." "Oh, me too, I'll join in right after I finish handing out the food." Seeing how eager they were to get beaten up, Jong-soon could only smile. Those two never change. Their potential was so great that teaching them was actually getting interesting, but he'd have to put a pin in it for today. Jong-soon politely refused, which seemed to surprise the big guy. "How come?" "Because I think we're about to reach the guide's destination." Chapter 2. Movement. You have successfully reached the destination. Congratulations on excellently completing Chapter 2 of the guide. All participants in this round will be awarded 4,000 points. Because you significantly shortened the time to reach the destination, all participants will be awarded an additional 4,000 points. The sudden announcement startled the group. "Oh, we're here already." "It's over. We finally made it," they said with relief. Meanwhile, Jong-soon grew pensive after hearing the announcement. "Looks like there's no system announcement about rankings. I guess I didn't get first place. Some other team must have just beelined it to the destination instead of collecting items like we did. It's a bit of a shame, but the points we earned from the hidden fragment are way more valuable. I should be satisfied with this," he thought to himself. Meanwhile, the system continued with a few more notifications. Because the arrival time was shortened, there will be additional benefits during the remaining time. During the remaining time, you can strengthen your position by hunting monsters. During this period, you will receive 1.5 times the bonus points. Guide Collision Field. Remaining time 11,317. When Dr. Lee Hanu heard this announcement, a worried look crossed her face. "Collision. Strengthen your position. What does that mean, Juo?" "Oh, what should we do now?" Jung turned and asked. Hearing him, the team leader's expression also grew thoughtful, as she was still unsure what the Chapter 3 challenge was about. But just then the air was filled with the screams of countless different creatures, from owlmen and dwarves to werewolves. "What the hell are we surrounded? Their friend!" Park Jong cried out. Faced with this imminent threat, Jong-soon immediately stepped forward and unleashed his Ice Wave magic. It was an ice-type attack spell from the Blue Tower that created a wave of frigid sharp ice to assault his enemies, its power amplified by the principles of the Black Tower. At that moment, Jong-soon was seen simply waving his hand, creating countless sharp ice pillars that hovered in the air. He then launched all of the ice pillars, sending them surging forward, turning the recklessly charging horde of monsters into pincushions. Their bodies then froze into ice sculptures and shattered right before everyone's eyes. The constellation Starving Prince expresses his eagerness for a refreshing meal, saying, "This is a brand new recipe." After taking care of them, Jong-soon turned back and calmly said to everyone, "For the time we have left, let's push as deep as we can." And so following his lead, the group began to move deeper into the area. During this time, countless monsters fell at Jong-soon's hands. As expected, he's terrifyingly strong. Their leader, Juo, admired him inwardly. Not far away as usual, Park Jong was riding his vehicle to lure more monsters. "Jong-soon, I've rounded them up. The best way to hunt monsters is to herd them all together," he said with a grin, having successfully baited a crowd of goblins into chasing him. All Jong-soon had to do was point his hand forward and unleash his magic in a single blast to wipe them out. Is that the last of them? At this rate, we can get pretty deep inside. Guide. Chapter 3. Collision. The objective is survival. Only half of the players who reach the destination can pass. Chapter 3. In other words, fights between groups are inevitable, especially near the entrance to the destination. It's going to turn into a massive battlefield where all the groups converge. That's why we need to secure a position near the entrance first, he thought with a frown. The scene cuts to the sky above. At that moment, an eagle was circling high above the forest, causing the starving prince to drool again at the sight of a new dish. But this was no ordinary eagle. It seemed to be controlled by someone. "Ha ha ha, is that them?" a voice spoke. "Yes, they are certainly worthy of a god's attention." The constellation Yang Jin's strange rebellion signaled its approval and unleashed its intense fury. The goat-headed one angrily made a demand of his subordinate, the chief of the beggars sect, though the reason for his anger was unclear. However, that guy quickly followed my orders. "I'm not sure why you hate them so much, but when a god like me wants something, it's bound to be a fun little game." As he spoke, he raised the flute to his lips and played a soft note. Immediately, countless monsters gathered around him, awaiting his command. Returning to Jong-soon's party, they'd fought monsters for 2 days and were now about halfway through. And it wasn't just Hosea, everyone's skills had improved significantly. More importantly, it was almost time. As he had this thought, he opened the treasure of greed and fused it with his ears of Jobo ability, which came from a monster that lives in mines and has heightened hearing and a keen sense of smell. Apparently, their highly developed senses allow them to find ore just by pressing their ears to the walls. Just as he finished this, our main character heard the terrified scream of his friend Park Jong-pyo. Bro, he wailed, a horde of monsters chasing him from behind. Wolves and owl-like creatures were hot on his heels. Seeing this, Jong-soon was startled. What's going on? So many monsters, and none of them are ordinary. That's the sound of Pan's flute. Why is Pan's flute here? Jong-soon thought, his face growing pale. To think I'd get mixed up with him again. Pan the goat who plays the melody of chaos. Before I regressed, he was the first celestial being to notice me back when I was struggling just to survive and meet his expectations. I did everything he demanded, jumping through all his hoops, but I got absolutely nothing in return. To him, I was just entertainment. The moment he got bored, he simply turned his back on me. The more he thought about it, the angrier Jong-soon became at his own foolishness in his past life. Then he calmed himself to think, but why now in this life I haven't had any contact with Pan? Wait, could it be? Jong-soon paused for a moment, recalling how a certain constellation had severed contact with all the lower grade ones. Thinking of this, everything clicked into place. So that's what's going on. His pride was wounded when he was blocked, so he decided to get his revenge. Having figured it all out, Jong-soon used lightning magic to fry the horde of monsters in the blink of an eye. However, he knew full well that this wasn't the end. It can't end like this. I need to find the source and take care of it. But can everyone else hold out? Not if I'm not here, when he worried. Just then, he glanced back to see the big guy Honchio use his Declare War ability, his entire body erupting with an overwhelming aura. As if he'd guessed Jong-soon's plan, he nodded and said, I'll hold the front line here. Not to be outdone, their leader Hosea stepped up. You're not the only one here, Honcho. After speaking, she activated the second form of her tarantula footwork. She charged forward, cutting through the monsters as if they were nothing. Young, you have a plan, don't you? Hurry up and go, she said with a confident smile. Park Jong-pyo, who had acted as the decoy, brought his mount over for Jong-soon. Ride this, bro. What? Jong-soon asked, confused. Oh, come on, I'm used to running on my own 2 feet anyway, but next time give me a heads up before you unleash your magic like that. All right. Jong-soon nodded quickly, mounting the skeletal beast and charging toward the source of the sound. It wasn't long before Jong-soon found the beggar sect chief playing his flute, surrounded by several minotaurs acting as bodyguards. Seeing this, Jong-soon had to slam the brakes on his mount, 5 minotaurs, each of them as strong as a named monster. At that same moment, the beggar sect chief saw Jong-soon approaching. He stopped playing his flute and called out a greeting. You're here early. I thought you'd play with my little pets for a while longer before showing up. As Jong-soon looked closer, he saw the man's appearance had completely transformed. Horns had sprouted from his head, and his ears had become long and goat-like. Just from his appearance, Jong-soon understood everything. He had clearly performed an advent, channeling the power of a constellation. This ritual had transformed his body, allowing him to freely control monsters of this caliber. You must have wagered a considerable amount of your life force with the constellations for this, Jong-soon noted. Jong-soon gave the beggar sect chief a sinister smile, his gaze looking past him, as if seeing the one truly pulling the strings. I get it now, the chief replied. If this is what the gods desire, then any price is worth paying. Now, my loyal ones, attack. The chief roared, and immediately the minotaurs charged forward in unison to pummel Jong-soon. Seeing this, our hero instantly entered his battle stance. They're all coming at once. I'll take them out from a distance first. With that, he unleashed his lightning magic, firing directly at the minotaurs and stunning them in place. But it wasn't over just yet. Seeing his minions get stopped in their tracks, the beggar just laughed like it was no big deal. He can't be done already, can he? With that, the man started playing his flute once more. Answer my call, giant worm! The second he finished speaking, the ground around Jong-un began to rumble violently. And just like that, a massive scale-covered worm burst from the ground, lunging straight for Jong-un. Seeing this, the general quickly opened the Treasury of Greed and learned a new skill, Earthwave. It's a basic spell from the Golden Tower's School of Seismic Magic, which makes the ground ripple and swallow enemies whole. Wasting no time, Jong-un placed his hand on the ground and slammed it down, unleashing a powerful wave of magical energy. The wave shot outwards, and the moment it hit the giant worm, the sickening crack of breaking bones echoed through the air. Watching from on high, the goat-headed constellation noted that these attacks still weren't enough to finish the job. As for Jong-un, he was just getting started. The constellation debaucherous satyr grows angry, wishing for you to be drowned in fear. I get it, my lord. The beggar chuckled and immediately started playing his flute again. This time the melody had a different effect. When the Minotaur heard it, its entire body turned blood red as it flew into a berserk rage. This was rage mode, the same skill the wolf leader used during the 10th wave of the first chapter. How am I supposed to handle this? Magic doesn't seem to be working anymore. Jong-un thought, his brow furrowing in concentration. And while he was trying to figure out his next move, his sponsor Mammon, who'd been watching the whole time, decided to give his favorite guy a little boost. The constellation Mammon has decided to temporarily return the weapon you lent it. The constellation Mammon wishes for you to quickly deal with that stinking goat. As soon as the message faded, the legendary sword Durandal suddenly materialized in Jong-un's hand, which instantly boosted his confidence. "All right then," he said with a grin. "I'll gladly put this to good use." Across from him, the frenzied Minotaur charged forward, throwing a wild punch, but Jong-un met the attack head-on, rushing in to finish the beast. Supreme Polarity Sword Art. Use the enemy's own strength against them, he thought as he darted past the charging Minotaur, using his sword to expertly redirect its punch. The move sent the monster's fist flying right into the face of the other Minotaur standing next to it. Caught completely off guard by the friendly fire, the second Minotaur was sent soaring through the air. And while the first one was still reeling in shock, Jong-un channeled power into his legs and launched himself high into the air. Then, using gravity to his advantage, he brought his sword down in a devastating slash aimed at both monsters. "This is the end," he declared coldly. Instantly, the two Minotaurs' bodies exploded like bombs, leaving the beggar chief staring in stunned silence. "It's over," he repeated, pressing the blade of Durandal against the horned man's neck. "Now about that goat head." Witnessing his avatar's pathetic failure, the constellation began to lose it, screaming from beyond the veil. The constellation Debaucherous Satyr screams in disbelief. It furiously orders its servant to get up immediately. The constellation Mammon demands you kill the monster right away and retrieve the divine sword. Back on the ground, Jong-un looked down at the beggar chief who was lying there foaming at the mouth. But he didn't let his guard down. "Pan's minion has been defeated," he reminded himself, "but I can't stop here." With that thought, Jong-un gave a faint smile and started to taunt the other constellation. How ridiculous. A god stooping so low as to use a human for his petty revenge. His tone was filled with so much contempt that the goat head was taken aback for a moment. The constellation Debaucherous Satyr is flustered and asks if you are talking to it. Jong-un just shrugged. "Yeah, I'm talking to you. You've got all the pride in the world, but not enough guts to face the Demon King yourself. So you hide behind a human to get to me. Isn't that right?" Hearing these words, the goat head's face twisted into a truly ugly grimace. The constellation, Debaucherous Satyr, cannot believe a mere mortal dares to provoke it. At that very moment, it unleashed its divine aura, making Jong-un feel like he was standing before a true god. But even then, he didn't show the slightest hint of fear. "What's the matter? Did I say something wrong?" he taunted. "If you're so angry, why don't you go cry to Mammon right now?" Jong-un scoffed. As if on cue, the silhouette of Mammon appeared behind him, and the Demon King himself issued a challenge to the goat head. The constellation Mammon spreads its black wings and says, "Come here if you dare." The face of the Debaucherous Satyr turned beet red, looking like it was about to explode from pure rage. Back with Jong-un, it was clear he had a real grudge because he wasn't done talking trash just yet. "Even with all your power gone, you still bully humans by coasting on your father's influence. It's surprising that a constellation can be so petty," Jong-sun said with a mocking laugh, and that little comment was all it took to send the goat head completely over the edge. It didn't even bother with its avatar anymore. Instead, it began to pour its power into the host's body, causing it to slowly transform. Muscles began to bulge, its legs warped into hooved goat legs, and it finally morphed into a half-man, half-goat monster. This was happening because the constellation... The Debaucherous Satyr was attempting a descent and act where a constellation directly possesses a follower to interfere with the tower, which is normally a huge no-no. Directly interfering with the tower means a descent comes with a ton of restrictions. For starters, their rank takes a hit for messing with causality. On top of that, it puts them on the radar of the system and other constellations. But the biggest reason constellations avoid descending is the penalty they face if they're defeated while in that state. And that's exactly why constellations almost never risk descending into their followers. But this goat-headed fool wasn't thinking that far ahead. Blinded by rage, all he wanted was to materialize in front of Yong-sun and rip him to shreds. But descending isn't some all-powerful move. A mortal's body can only handle a tiny fraction of a god's true power. And fundamentally, the goat head was just a low-ranked constellation. So even after descending, there was no way he could actually beat Jong-sun. the moment his power finished transferring into the believer's body. I kick. Jong-sun sprang into action, casually swinging his sword Dandel across the monster's throat, and cleanly lopped its head off. All the constellation could manage was a final cry of agony before its connection to the host was severed. The constellation Capricious Goat has failed in its attempt at descent. A portion of the constellation's rank has crumbled. The power used for the descent has dissipated. A series of notification alerts chimed for Jong-sun. Even though the goat head was now detached from the body, the constellation hadn't lost consciousness just yet. It was moments away from being forcibly ejected. The goat head uttered a threat to Jong-sun. "I will not forgive you." Seeing this, Jong-sun replied coolly, "Well, what did you expect trying to descend in broad daylight?" And with that, he unleashed his gluttony power, summoning mouths that all turned toward the goat head, scaring the daylights out of it. The aura emanating from these mouths caused its body to start trembling uncontrollably. "What do you think you're doing? If you touch me, my father won't let you get away with this," he threatened, hoping to make Jong-sun back off. But after coming this far, there was no way Jong-sun was going to hold back. Immediately, the fang-filled mouths began to consume the goat's essence, and just a single taste sent the starving demon into a state of ecstasy. The constellation, the Prince of Starvation, declared, "It's been a while since I've had such a delicious meal." Now, as he opened his maw wide. At this point, even a fool like the goat could figure it out. Jong-sun was backed by 2 high-ranking constellations. Impossible. "What did you do to gain the power of 2 gods?" he screamed in complete confusion. But before he could even get an answer, the giant mouth snapped shut, swallowing him whole. The constellation Capricious Goat has fallen below the rank threshold. Due to its diminished rank, the constellation has lost its system privileges. The Prince of Starvation remarked, "The taste is a bit strange, but the depth of flavor is wonderful." With that, the starving demon let out a mighty burp, leaving Jong-sun completely speechless. To be honest, a moment ago, when he decided to use the power of gluttony to absorb a constellation's power, Jong-sun had been a little worried, unsure if Beelzebub could actually digest the rank of a constellation. But it looks like the gamble paid off, he thought. Nearby, the patron of wealth commented, "You might just be the first person to ever defeat a constellation during the tutorial." The patron of wealth shook his head in disbelief. Meanwhile, after absorbing the constellation, Jong-sun checked his status. He was a bit surprised to find that no notification about a power increase had appeared. "Wait a minute, why isn't the stat absorption working?" he wondered before turning his head and noticing the pipes that the leader of the beggars' sect had dropped earlier. As he looked at the item, its information promptly appeared before him. Fawn's instrument. Type musical instrument grade B. A wind instrument woven from reeds. It has inherited the power of a sacred artifact and is imbued with the essence of the god Pan. Ability 1, Seduction. Allows the user to control animal-type monsters depending on performance skill. Ability 2, Fear Resonance. Inflicts fear upon enemies with the effect's strength depending on performance skill. Ability 3, Chaotic Cry. Causes enemies to fall into a state of confusion depending on performance skill. After reading the descriptions, Jong-sun's eyes lit up. "Oh, this is interesting. It's a replica just like my sword Durandal," he mused. "But every single ability depends on performance skill. Let's see. I'm sure it'll be useful eventually." With that thought, Jong-un carefully placed the pipes into his inventory, and a moment later, a system notification popped up. "You have successfully absorbed the rank of the god Pan. Nutrient absorption has increased all stats by 10. You have absorbed the rank of Pan, the god of shepherds. You have received the stigma of the forest god." As the notification chimed, the back of Jong-un's right hand suddenly emitted a brilliant light. A ferocious-looking goat head tattoo then formed on the back of his hand, just by looking at the mark. Jong-un immediately knew what it was, a divine stigma, something only those chosen by the gods can possess. It was the power of the gods themselves allowing one to surpass human limits. "I never imagined I'd obtain a divine stigma," he thought. "This gluttony power is even more incredible than I thought. If I can keep absorbing other gods at this rate..." Jong-un gulped at his own bold thought. Unaware of Jong-un's intentions, the system displayed another notification explaining the divine stigma. Sealed divine stigma of the forest god. Type divine stigma. Level unknown. A divine stigma containing the power of the god Pan, the god of nature and shepherds with hidden divine potential. Ability 1. Ability 2 and Ability 3 are sealed. The stigma's rank can be absorbed and enhanced by consuming additional nutrients via the Gluttony Authority or by meeting certain conditions. Doing so will enhance its power. As for Jong-un, the temporary sealing of the divine stigma didn't disappoint him too much. "It's fine," he reasoned. I plan to use the gluttony authority freely from now on anyway. What started as simple revenge against Pan has turned into an unexpected reward. Well then, I guess I should head back now, he thought with a smile, especially with a reward this much greater than expected. Meanwhile, Shua's group was still fighting their hardest against the wave of monsters controlled by the goat-headed guy. And even though it was tough, the group fought, methodically holding their formation. Damn it, it's like another monster wave, a party member grumbled. But don't you think we're way stronger than we were back then? Of course we are. Another chimed in, stabbing their weapon into a monster's gut. A big reason they'd held their formation for so long was thanks to Beacon and Lai Hanun, besides the skeletons Beacon had summoned. Lai Hanun had also acquired a formidable new ability, a power that didn't just stop bleeding, but could also induce it. After she finished off the nearby monsters, her party members cheered. Lai Hanun took a deep breath, then smiled and turned to thank her patron constellation. Thank you, Mr. Formal Bagel. The Leo constellation just cleared its throat and turned away. He muttered that there was no need for thanks. Elsewhere, while Park Jungpo was fighting, he suddenly heard a melodious sound. What is that sound? Park Jungpo wondered. The melody continued to echo across the battlefield. As soon as they heard it, the monsters who had been united against them suddenly began attacking each other, causing even Siowa to freeze in surprise. The monsters have been thrown into chaos. Only one person could do this. She smiled softly, thinking of him. Rewinding a few minutes after finishing off the goat-headed guy, Jongin had hurriedly mounted the wolf skeleton from Park Jungpo and was heading back to the group. He was worried about how they were holding up. I wonder how everyone's doing. I hope no one got killed, he silently prayed. When he finally arrived, he was surprised to see everyone doing much better than he'd expected. They're actually pretty good fighters, he mused. I thought they'd be in trouble, but it looks like they managed without my help. Still, I guess it wouldn't hurt to lend a hand. With that, Yongun took the monster-controlling flute from his inventory. Next, he opened the blind demon's treasury and took out a music sheet titled Turbulent Sea. It was a battle song played by the Naga half-human, half-snake creatures to subdue their enemies on the battlefield. This heroic anthem inspires courage in allies and sows fear among enemies. And just like that, with Jonggun's help, his party's morale skyrocketed. Meanwhile, the monster formation fell into disarray as they were steadily pushed back. It didn't take long for the big guy Han Chio to land the finishing blow on the last monster, attacking the group. With that, they received a confirmation from the system. You have successfully thwarted the surprise quest revenge of the forest spirit. Looking at the notification, Yongun nodded, satisfied. Pan's entire plan went up in smoke. Speaking of which, the group's leader Chella saw that Jong-soon had returned and cheerfully ran over to greet him. Jong-soon, I knew it was you. Thanks for your help. In response, Jong-soon humbly waved it off. It was nothing. You guys could have won without me, he said softly. At the same time, his loyal junior, Park Jong-pil, also rushed over looking like he was about to give him a hug. Hyung-nim, I had complete faith in you. Seeing him act like this, Jong-soon immediately reached out and grabbed his subordinate's face to stop him from doing something cringy. This guy, because of his bad attitude before my rebirth, I couldn't stand him. But after I returned, I've started to warm up to him. He'll be very useful. With that thought, Jong-soon nodded in response. Thanks. I'll return the white wolf. Wait, you mean the white wolf, right? Its color... Park Jong-pil's voice trailed off. The white wolf's color had shifted from pure white to a reddish brown. And the reason for this change was, of course, all thanks to Jong-soon. Right, I forgot. I used the treasure's power to rush back to the group, and that's why its color turned completely red. Simply put, the white wolf had been overworked, to the point that its color changed just like red hair, the legendary horse of the great Lu Bu that could run 1,000 miles in a day. It charged headfirst into the enemy and claimed victory with its blazing red mane. Oh my god, it turned red! Park Jong-pil shouted, looking at the new appearance of his ride while Jong-soon could only scratch his head in embarrassment. Sorry about that, I might have pushed it a little too hard. Dude, how did you know this is my style, haha? From now on, its name is Red Wolf, Park Jong-pil said cheerfully. It seemed he genuinely loved the mount's new color. Meanwhile, seeing how happy Park Jong-pil was, Jong-soon didn't want to spoil the mood, but he still had to speak up and remind him, the color isn't the issue here. It's been weakened from being overworked. It's going to fall apart. Hearing their conversation from nearby, Bicken walked over and offered his help. May I take a look? Here comes our skeleton expert, Park Jong-pil said with a laugh, hopeful that his ride could still be saved. Beacon then introduced himself with a quick greeting. My name is Beacon. After speaking, he began examining every part of the Red Wolf's body and quickly gave his assessment. Its durability is a bit lower, but the hardness of its bones has actually increased compared to before. The problem is, without any muscles, all of the impact is absorbed directly by the bones. The expert explained, nodding as he assessed it. Nearby, Park Jong-pil was still proudly fawning over his pet. "My red wolf is so cool. Since you gave it to me, I'll take great care of it." "You'd better. It's very impressive. Its bone and joint structure is incredibly sturdy," Bicken added, stroking the red wolf's skull. Seeing two grown men get so excited over a pile of bones gave Jong-soon goosebumps, so he quietly walked away. "Let's not waste any more time here. We should keep moving. Take good care of Red Wolf, okay?" Jong-soon said quietly. He then surveyed the area and spoke to their leader, Chella. "Once everything is ready, we should press onward." "All right," Chella nodded in response. "We should arrive in about another day." And just like that, after reforming their ranks and resting for a bit, the group set off again until they came to a towering sheer cliff. From the top, our friend Park Jong-pil glanced down below and got the chills. "This cliff is no joke. I can't even see the bottom." Their leader, Chella, asked Jong-soon from behind, "This is where we're going to set up our base, isn't it?" Hearing her question, our hero turned and nodded. "That's right. With the cliff at our back, defending will be much easier," he said. He then gazed into the distance, lost in thought. This cliff marks the boundary for Phase 3 of the trial. No matter how skilled I am as a player, I can't get past this cliff. That means there's no way for us to be ambushed from behind. Most players will end their attempt at the entrance to this area by setting up our base here. Completing the third phase is almost guaranteed. At least that's what I was thinking. But then Pan had to interfere. There could be many other constellations who hold a grudge against me like he does. They might even order the groups they're sponsoring to attack me. "I can't let my guard down," Jong-soon reminded himself, still fuming over that goat-faced idiot's foolish actions. As for Chella, after agreeing with Jong-soon to set up camp here, she quickly went down below to direct the group with Hanaji and Han. "Shall we begin constructing the base?" "Yes, I've been dying to get to work." "It's finally our time to shine," the twin sisters said excitedly. The older sister Hanaji then waved to Jong-soon and said, "Hey, could you get some more wood for us?" "Of course." Jong-soon nodded. "In that case, I'll help too." "Me too," Honcho and Park Jong-pil chimed in. But before the wood-gathering party could even head out, everyone got a notification about the next phase. The Phase 3 trial, The Clash, was beginning. The challenge was to survive until only half of the participants remained, and you could completely claim the achievements of any player. "You defeated." Reading the notification, everyone's faces went blank for a moment. Only Johnson, who had been through this before, stayed calm. For him, the objective was crystal clear survive. "By now, the forest outside must be drenched in blood," Johnson muttered to himself. And just as he predicted, a battle was raging among the players in the forest as they ruthlessly took each other down. The others, "Wait, why is everyone attacking each other?" A pale-faced guy asked. To answer his naive question, another man appeared. He sneered, "You still don't get it. It's the reason why less than 10 of you are still alive. Please spare me. Do you know how hard it was for me to survive this long?" he pleaded, which just made the other man double over with laughter. "Huh, and why should I care soup? If I take out one more person, I'll be a survivor and you'll be the sacrifice." With that, the man tightened his grip on his sword and lunged straight for his prey. And just like that, countless screams began to echo through the forest. At the same time, the scene shifts to another group, where a man was also receiving guidance from a certain constellation. The gray-haired old man constellation yelled that this was his chance. Hearing this, the man asked in a low voice, "If I take him down, will you really grant me your power?" The gray-haired old man constellation scowled. "You dare ask me to repeat my promise?" The sheer anger in his eyes was all the confirmation the man needed. "Understood. I won't just eliminate him, but his entire group as well," the man sneered. It seemed Johnson's worries about being targeted by other constellations had come true. Back with the nameless man, his patron constellation was still yelling at him nonstop. The gray-haired old man constellation screamed, urging him on, "Hurry up, show them what you're made of." Hearing those words, the passionate young man couldn't help but be furious at being ordered around by some old geezer. Like he was some kind of servant. He didn't dare say it out loud, but in his head he was already cursing the old man's entire family tree. "This damn old geezer. I'm not your slave, you arrogant bastard. I listened at first because you lent me your power, but now you meddle in everything, giving all sorts of commands. Just you wait. When I finish this and get my own power, I'm going to kick this despicable constellation to the curb." As this thought crossed his mind, he gritted his teeth so hard they audibly ground together. Then as he prepared to attack Johnson's group, he tried to reassure himself. Well, they've already made it this deep inside anyway. How did they get past all those monsters? Someone asked, puzzled. Just then, a younger member of the group spotted something pointing and shouting to get everyone's attention. Leader, look. Hearing that the leader followed his gaze and immediately broke out in a cold sweat. What is this? Did they build an entire fortress? He paused for a beat, then asked his constellation with a terrified look on his face. Constellation, what in the world is going on? In response, the old man Constellation not only offered no explanation, but even insulted him. The gray-haired old man Constellation spat and then yelled, "Why haven't you charged in yet?" Hearing this, the man gritted his teeth once more. But when you're living under someone else's roof, you have to bow your head. After all, he was just borrowing the Constellation's power. So whether he liked it or not, he had to pull himself together and face his group. Don't be afraid. There's a cliff behind them. All we have to do is push them off and we'll win. With that, he tightened his grip on his spear and led the charge. He rushed forward to attack. However, before he could even reach the wooden fence, he slammed face first into an invisible shield, his features comically squishing against the barrier. What the hell is this barrier? The leader wondered aloud, frowning as he reached out to touch it. But before they could observe any further, a barrage of arrows flew out from inside the fortress, aiming straight for them. And the person responsible was, of course, none other than Jong-sun. Inside the base, he had his hand pressed to the ground, activating a strange magic formation. The Treasure of Greed has been activated. Origin of Camilder's defense. This was a defensive magic circle designed by Camilder, one of the commanders of the Black Tower. While it couldn't be maintained for long, it could block all enemy attacks and intrusions. Beside him, Sel-A and Lee Hanan. Despite having witnessed Yongun use his abilities many times before, they were still stunned when he created such a massive barrier. They still couldn't hide the astonishment on their faces. "Whoa, how did you do that?" Chella blurted out. In response to her question, Yongun took out the 2 magic stones he had gotten from the goblin camp and explained, "I found a few useful things in the goblin village that we wiped out last time. That said, Jonggun's goal was to use the magic stones to enhance the defensive circle. Normally, it would only last for a moment, but by using the magic stones, he had at least 5 minutes to make further preparations. Jonggun always found a way to deal with it, which made the female leader so happy she couldn't stop grinning. Everything you do surprises me, Jonggun. It's like you're from the future." She said it casually, which made Jonggun's expression a bit awkward. He could only cough a few times and change the subject. "Hurry up and give the order to attack. This barrier won't last long." Hearing his reminder, the leader snapped out of it. "Ah, right. Everyone prepare to attack." "Understood," the group replied. Next, they began to wheel out a giant catapult to retaliate against the attack from outside. "When defending a fortress, you obviously have to use a catapult," Hanagaji said with a laugh. "All right, fire," Hondan shouted. And immediately after that shout, the catapult's arm swung forward violently, and the stone loaded inside was flung forward with wind-ripping speed. Outside, the group of attackers still didn't know how to deal with the barrier. Suddenly, they saw a giant shadow hurtling towards them, and in the next moment, their formation was shattered by the catapult's projectile. Inside, the younger sister Han saw this and clenched her fists in excitement. It really worked. Hearing that her older sister Hanaji smugly said, "I told you it would be effective." Not to be outdone by the twin sisters, the big guy, Hanejo, gripped a spear and threw it with all his might. With his beastly strength, the spear in his hand was no less powerful than the catapult. Meanwhile, Jonggun wanted to end the battle quickly. He had no intention of sitting idle. "That guy is practically a living catapult. I can't be outdone either." With that thought, Yongun began to concentrate energy in his palm and used a fireball spell enhanced by the magic of the Black Tower. He unleashed a massive fireball straight ahead, which blew away a group of attackers before they could even recover from the catapult. "Don't fall back. Break through the barrier," the captain shouted. Back with Yongun using his observation skill, he noticed countless other groups rushing from the forest to attack them. "Damn it, reinforcements are coming. I didn't expect so many constellations to hate Mammon. But thanks to this, I can earn quite a few achievements," Jonggun muttered. To deal with the situation, he opened the Treasure of Greed again and took out a large bow along with the Grand Empire's archery technique. This technique was developed to train soldiers with a power that made countless kingdoms tremble in fear. Next, gripping the bow in his hand, Jonggun slowly drew the arrow back. And when the bow was bent into a half moon, Jonggun released his hand, sending the arrow flying out with wind-ripping speed, landing right at the feet of some guy, startling him. However, since it looked like a missed shot, the attacking group relaxed. Is his aim that bad? This guy isn't as tough as we thought, they sneered, unaware of the danger that was about to befall them, because right after that, the arrow stuck in the ground suddenly emitted a soft light, followed by a world-shaking explosion that sent dust and smoke flying into the sky. It was as if a bomb had just gone off. At the same time, Jong-un received 2 confirmation notifications as the 2 unfortunate guys were eliminated. You have defeated player Kim Tae-hee and looted 3,910 points. You have defeated player James and looted 4,180 points. He looked at the points he had received. Jong-un smiled lightly. Not a bad haul. It's just a shame this power of gluttony can't be used on players. I was only able to devour the contract holder of the God Pan after he basically became a god himself. Anyway, I guess it's about time, Jong-un muttered to himself. And right on cue, all players simultaneously received a notification. The number of players has been reduced to 3/4. The starving ogres began to appear on the battlefield. Back with Jong-un, he was also looking forward to these ogres appearing. Tastier prey than the players has finally shown up. Thinking this, and wanting to increase his score, Jong-un turned to the leader, Seo. You take care of the base. Hearing him say that, a worried look appeared in Seo's eyes. Isn't it dangerous for you to go alone? No, it's easier to go alone. If something goes wrong, I can escape quickly, Jong-un replied. But in truth, he was afraid Seo would just hold him back. The big guy, Hanaliel, immediately stepped up and offered, I'll go with you, seeing that Yong couldn't really say no. All right, if it's Hanaliel, I guess it's fine, Jong thought. With that settled, the 2 of them mounted their skeletal beast and rode out from camp. As they rode the big guy, Hanaliel took the chance to ask, So are those starving ogres really all that tough? Yeah, they're incredibly strong. Even you would have your hands full fighting one head-on, Jong replied casually. But after hearing that, Hanaliel wasn't scared in the slightest. In fact, he looked even more eager for a fight. I can't wait, he muttered. Jong knew exactly why the big guy was so pumped. Hanaliel must be itching for a real fight. Lately, he's only been fighting small fry. After getting his excitement under control, Hanaliel asked, So how are we supposed to find these monsters? Jong just gave him a mysterious smile in response. Don't worry, you'll meet them soon enough whether you want to or not. What's that supposed to mean? Hanaliel asked, confused. But before Jong could answer, he saw exactly what he meant. Because just up ahead, he spotted massive green-skinned giants clutching struggling players in their fists. A single sharp horn jutted out from the center of their heads. With blazing blood-red eyes and immense strength, they were effortlessly slaughtering the group of players around them. Looking at their colossal figures, even Hanaliel had to rein in his battle lust. What the hell is that? He yelled. Beside him, Yong scanned the area for a moment before answering, It's a monster that spawns all over the battlefield. Looks like they've already killed a fair number of players. Looks like a pair of them spawned this time. No problem. We'll each take one. Jong said, drawing a bone dagger. Seeing his partner's confidence, Hanaliel calmed down a bit and told himself, I've been training every single day. I can feel my strength. There's nothing to worry about. I'll take it down in a single blow. Meanwhile, the giant ogre spotted a tiny figure charging straight for it. Seeing this tiny human charging to his death, it let out a booming roar. Human! You weak little human. I'm so hungry. As it roared, it reached out its massive hand to snatch our protagonist. At that exact moment, the constellation Beelzebub was having a similar thought. The starving prince feels the same hunger. He was practically drooling at the sight of the juicy-looking ogre. The starving prince sends an urgent message. Yong felt a little helpless dealing with such a glutton. All right, just wait a second, he sighed, opening the treasury of greed. From within, he pulled out Camille's dagger technique. It was a legendary dagger technique created by the mercenary Camille, mastered by only 5 people in the entire world. While she normally used dual swords, she developed this specific technique to take down large monsters that were resistant to conventional attacks. The moment he learned the skill, a vast amount of knowledge flooded into Yong's mind, allowing him to master the technique instantly as if he'd been practicing it for years. Immediately after, Yong's body moved like a flash of light and he instantly sliced through the giant ogre's wrist. At first, the giant green creature scoffed, thinking a wound like that was nothing. Humph, this little scratch. But his voice was cut short by a scream of agony as blood began to gush non-stop from his wrist. This was the true power of Camille's dagger technique. The technique specifically targets the tendons and blood vessels of larger opponents, designed to gradually wear them down. I'm using a technique someone spent 15 years perfecting to sever every single one of its blood vessels, and all I had to do was open a treasure chest. This is technically my own power now, but man, it really feels like cheating. Zhang thought, unleashing a flurry of lightning-fast attacks, precisely striking one blood vessel after another on the massive ogre's body. This left the beast able to do nothing but scream helplessly before it finally collapsed. The moment it hit the ground, Zhang received a system notification. You have defeated the mission monster, Starving Ogre. You have obtained an ogre's horn. Shija Vabama Fedrianino. Your personal contribution has increased by 10,000 points for a solo kill. You have received an additional 5,000 points. Nearby, the starving prince was panting like a dog, staring greedily at the fresh kill. But Yang paid him no mind, focused entirely on the rewards he'd just received. Man, the EXP and achievement rewards are pretty disappointing. Yang thought, I wonder how Sola is doing. Meanwhile, the big guy, Hanaliel, was finally getting the proper fight he wanted with the other ogre. Big human, I will eat you, the monster roared. The one-horned giant roared as it threw a massive punch. Undaunted, Hanaliel met the attack with a powerful punch of his own. Their fists collided with a deafening boom that echoed through the air. In the raw clash of power, they seemed to be perfectly evenly matched. Neither of them was pushed back an inch, and from that single exchange, Hanaliel got a clear measure of the monster's strength. This monster's a real beast, he chuckled to himself, but I'm even stronger. He then whipped around, seizing the monster's wrist with both hands. Next, using every ounce of his strength, he executed a perfect shoulder throw, sending the giant's body crashing to the earth with an impact that shook the ground. With his own opponent down, Han Chao glanced over at Zhang Sun, who had already taken care of his. Seeing that Zhang Sun had dispatched his ogre so cleanly, he was reminded that he still had a long way to go to catch up to his friend. As for his own ogre, despite the brutal slam, it apparently hadn't learned its lesson. Dangerous human, I'll destroy you! The massive creature roared, charging at Han Chao like a living mountain. Faced with the onslaught, Han Chao simply took a deep breath. He began circulating ki throughout his body, settling into a classic Tai Chi stance. The clueless ogre closed the distance and threw a colossal fist right at him, but Han Chao dodged the attack with surprising ease. Seizing the momentary opening before the ogre could recover, he slammed a powerful punch square into its gut. The blow was so immense that a visible shockwave erupted from the ogre's back. Meanwhile, Zhang Sun watched from a distance, having already dealt with his own opponent. He was curious to see how far his friend could push himself. He's managed to combine the Tai Chi I taught him with that war-incarnate power he received from Agarus, Zhang Sun mused. His ability to adapt and merge different techniques is incredible. The guy's a natural. He was a powerhouse even before he regressed, but now he's on a whole new level. However, he noted, it looks like the toll on his stamina is just as massive. Noticing Han Chao's slightly pale face, Zhang Sun pulled a recovery potion from his inventory and tossed it over. Drink this. Thanks. Han Chao nodded, catching it cleanly. At this rate, we'll wipe out all these starving ogres in no time. You still holding up? Zhang Sun asked. Of course, don't you worry about me, Han Chao declared, pounding his chest with confidence. Meanwhile, in the guide control office, a man in his 40s, who looked like a classic stressed-out office worker, was furiously hammering away at his keyboard, muttering under his breath. This was the guide adjustment manager. Dang it, he grumbled. This whole guidance session is a complete disaster. Why is this happening? A whole cluster of high-potential individuals all at once. What a mess. There are way too many survivors. Now I have to monitor and record every single one. This is just pure exploitation. By the end of Chapter 3, the number of participants is supposed to be cut in half. With a sigh, he leaned back in his chair to finally enjoy a cup of coffee, but he hadn't even had a moment's peace when a frantic voice erupted from his desk phone. Team leader, sir, have you seen this? Startled by the shout, the team leader barked back. What's with all the yelling? Taken aback, the subordinate lowered his voice and stammered, Well, sir, it's just... Someone is actively hunting the starving ogres. It's two of the players, a Zhang Sun and a Kong Han Chao. They're the ones hunting them down. But, sir, he added worriedly, if this keeps up, the tutorial stage is going to drag on forever. The team leader, however, was completely unfazed. No, that's not the problem, you idiot. Did you even bother to read the tutorial manual? If more than 90% of the starving OS are eliminated, it appears. Back on the battlefield with Zhang Sun and Han Chao, things were unfolding exactly as the team leader had predicted. The moment the duo wiped out 90% of the OS horde, a truly massive one was summoned. Its every footstep made the ground tremble, and its sheer presence was something that even the regressed Zhang Sun couldn't have anticipated. That thing, Zhang Sun thought, it's a hidden piece, something that even I didn't know existed. Standing before them was a two-headed OS dwarfing all the others they had fought. This was the OS Chieftain Crag. You bring no food, I'm starving. Starving, Crag roared, its faces contorted with rage. At this, the few remaining OS began to grovel nervously. We're so sorry, chieftain. Please forgive us. Meanwhile, Han Chao stared up at the behemoth. He knew better than to charge in recklessly, so he turned to his friend for guidance. Jong-soon, what's the plan? Jong-soon scanned the area. Looks like all the small fry have gathered round their boss now. Despite the unexpected turn of events, a thrill of excitement coursed through Jong-soon. A hidden challenge I've never encountered before. This just got interesting. With that, he declared without a hint of hesitation, the plan we're taking it down, of course. I'll take the big guy. You handle the minions. And with that, Jong-soon channeled power into his legs and shot forward like a cannonball. In the blink of an eye, he blew past a pair of OS appearing directly in front of Craig. The two OS he'd just passed were overjoyed. They'd been worried about finding food for their leader. And now, someone had just served himself up on a silver platter. We found some food, one of them cheered. But before they could even give chase, Han Chao moved to intercept them, blocking their path. Sorry, fellas, your opponent is me. Hancho's face was brimming with confidence. Meanwhile, as soon as Jong-soon closed in on Cracklock, he wasted no time and relentlessly attacked with his signature dagger technique. However, Cracklock truly lived up to his title as the leader of this orc horde. Jong-soon's lightning-fast strike at its throat was blocked by the giant's gauntlet. In fact, Jong-soon's attack couldn't even leave a single scratch on the gauntlet. Stronger than I thought, he thought to himself. Meanwhile, seeing an ant dare to challenge it, the giant's 4 eyes glowed red like car headlights in a fury. This annoying little pest, what a nuisance. As it spoke, it began to grip its weapon tightly. Meanwhile, our protagonist knew that just using daggers would make it nearly impossible to take down this giant, so he switched to using magic. By the secret of the Black Tower, the power of Lightning Chain has been enhanced. By the secret of the Black Tower, the power of Ice Wave has been enhanced. 2 notifications appeared as Jong-soon combined lightning and ice magic. Once the spell was complete, he immediately unleashed it on the huge beast. Streams of lightning and sharp ice spikes struck Cracklock's body directly, causing the hand gripping its axe to instantly freeze solid. But this still wasn't enough to trouble Cracklock. With a single swing of its arm, it easily shattered the ice encasing its hand. How ridiculous! It roared. However, Jong-soon hadn't expected his ice magic to actually hold Cracklock for long. He just needed to stall it for a moment, and that was enough. Then, how about you try this? As he spoke, he began to gather all his mana into his palms using a type of magic called Black Flame. It was an attack skill from the sorcerers of the Black Tower that spews dark flames to engulf an opponent. By the secret of the Black Tower, the power of Black Flame is being enhanced. Just like that, after the spell was complete, Jong-soon swung his hand forward, unleashing the flames directly at the orc chieftain. Its entire body was engulfed in scorching fire, and the faint smell of grilled meat began to waft out. Cracklock was still screaming in pain. So hot, how dare a morsel like you, I'll crush you, Cracklock roared as its 2 eyes blazed with fury. And although it was screaming horribly, it didn't seem to have suffered any real damage. Witnessing this, the smile on Jong-soon's face stiffened slightly. Truly a monster. I have something I want to try on a creature like it, I just don't know if it'll be enough. As he spoke, he took out a goblin longsword from his inventory. Item, goblin longsword. Rank E, description. A sword taken from a player, stolen from a goblin, but it looks like it's still usable. Staring at the shiny sword in front of him, Jong-soon muttered to himself, it's a bit risky using a weapon this low level. This sword is even weaker than the monster, which only got a light scratch from a dagger, but the sword's durability doesn't matter. I just need it to hold up for one hit. He then opened his treasury of greed and began to enchant it with the properties of the magic sword that the hero Beowulf used to slay Grendel's mother. A sword known to harden after every bloody battle. With this property, the sword began to be enveloped in a purple aura. But immediately after, a few cracks appeared on the sword as it couldn't withstand the properties of a legendary weapon. However, Jong-soon only needed it to work once or twice. That's all I need. Up ahead, the orc chieftain was oblivious. Unaware that Jong-soon had prepared a special weapon to face it, the chieftain charged forward in a frenzy. You tiny human, I won't spare you. Before the words even left its mouth, our protagonist casually swung his sword once, and in the next moment, a bone-deep slash appeared on Cracklock's enormous body, silencing its cry. At the same time, the goblin longsword couldn't withstand the power of the miasma and shattered into pieces. A poisonous vapor from the miasma spread out. Staring at the now headless body before him, Jong-soon knew that he had won. With its skin already scorched by the black flames, there was no way it could withstand the miasma's poison, Jong-soon thought with satisfaction. And just as he expected, the giant body of the orc chieftain collapsed before him. You have defeated the hidden boss orc chieftain Cracklock. Level up. Personal honor has increased by 100,000 points. You have consumed orc chieftain Cracklock. Nutrients absorbed. Strength has increased by 30 points. The starving prince nibbles the food, and his eyes widen, saying, "This is a true delicacy." The starving prince gobbled up the corpse, his cheeks flushing with excitement. Jong-soon just wondered if there was anything this guy wouldn't find delicious. With that thought, he glanced back and saw that his friend Honcho had already taken down the 2 remaining orcs, which surprised our protagonist a little. "Hey, you're pretty good. I didn't expect you to take down 2 of those fiends on your own." In response, Honcho grumbled to himself, "Even so, I was still a little slower than you." "Of course," he said, handing Haniol a recovery potion. "Drink this and let's head back to base." Just then, however, a notification popped up before his eyes, leaving him completely stunned. For the first time in the tower's history, Orc Chieftain Craglock has been defeated. As a special reward, the entire party of player, Yongan will receive a pass to Chapter 3 of the test. Staring at the notification,